Okay, we're live, people. This is Addy Ads, chosen one of YouTube. It is the Motley Crew here at the Neighborhood News Studio. I'm with Aaron Adler to my left, George Webb, author to my right, and to his right is Detroit Dave Underdown, aka Dave Down Under. And George is going to be reading Awan Minutes to Midnight, revised edition.
Yeah, this is a book that is banned by Amazon because it sold so many copies so quickly. In about 7 days, it was over 3,000 copies, I think, something like that. And it was this progressive thing on Amazon where if a book would take off really fast, I would get banned. And I've had 4 or 5 different book bannings. Still 3 of them are banned, even though I've made all the changes that Amazon wants me to make. But this is my most successful book and was also my first book. And this book was also banned on Parler, and it was given away free on Parler. So I'm going to just read part of the rewritten book, and I'll start out here, and then I'll take questions from these guys and then questions from the audience. And we're just going to add episodes. If we do a 5-minute episode for episode 1, that's great. Tomorrow we'll do a 3-minute episode. That's great. And we're just going to keep adding. And so that you could listen to the whole thing in a playlist from beginning to end if you're driving or whatever. So it begins in 1 minutes to midnight. This is the introduction. In April of 2017, George Webb, a Washington, D.C. based journalist, found a set of BlackBerry encryption devices, and he reported had belonged to a spy ring that existed in the United States Congress. In May of 2017, based on a long interview with a Capitol Hill staffer, a Biden Capitol Hill staffer, George Webb reported that this congressional spy ring also configured the encrypted BlackBerries for members of the U.S. Senate, including former Senator and then Vice President Joe Biden. This longtime Senate staffer claimed these BlackBerry encryption devices enabled an encrypted network to discuss off-book energy deals that enabled a off-book deal with Russia and China as the 2 countries involved. I did not know at that time it was Belt and Road. In October of 2020, a whistleblower named Tony Bobulinski showed the world 3 encrypted devices used by Hunter Biden, James Biden, and potentially Hunter's father, Vice President Joe Biden. These BlackBerries and the disclosures from the laptop of Hunter Biden dramatically affected, very late in the game, the undecided voters in the 2020 presidential campaign. Of course, we don't know how that's going to turn out, what impact that's going to have, but that's going to be pretty soon. Aaron, your first question.
You mentioned there at the beginning you found the BlackBerries. Can you just review where you found them? Taggart, right? This is the Taggart house?
Yes, I found them in a house that was rented by the D.C. operative congressional staffer named Imran Awan, and he rented the house to Andre Taggart. And Taggart was a Marine. His wife was in the Navy and still had a top secret clearance. And he said that 3 different investigative agencies came to the house for BlackBerries with special markings. One was NCIS, one was the FBI, and the third and last that took the custody was Fairfax County Sheriff. This is the best of my recollection. So we know they were important because 3 different investigation agencies came out to get them.
How do you know that Imran Awan was the owner of that house?
Court records indicate that 96, 97, I believe it was, Hawkshead belonged to Imran. And then we had Taggart testify. He went on to crowdsource the truth with Jason Goodman and said he lived there, said he was the owner. Other records indicated that Taggart didn't rent the house when he told me, right after the election in 2017. He actually had purchased the house with Vinay Taggart in 2009. So he'd actually been there for 8 years during all the Obama years. So it could have been that there was a school play here where they were using it for 8 years, bringing people in to the United States, and then it's discovered. So now we're going to just make it look like we're the good guys, send money to us. We don't know the answer.
And Imran Awan is important because he was the network admin, correct? Network administrator.
Right. And server administrator for the DNC for a period of about 12 years. So it was a long period of time. And he had all the passwords to the key servers. And he was cited, of course, by the Inspector General of the House of Representatives appointed by Nancy Pelosi that he was doing nefarious things, and the Awans were doing nefarious things on the server. Okay. So back to the book. The congressional spy ring consisted of 5 Pakistani nationals, with the ringleader Imran Awan making over $160,000 a year while living in Pakistan 9 months out of the year. One Ukrainian woman named Natalia Sova also worked in the U.S. Congress, married to a Pakistani in the spy ring named Abid Awan. The spy ring appears to have begun in 2004 with the arrival of Imran Awan and his wife, Hina Alvi, to the U.S. Congress through Congressman Wexler. I just found out that Congressman Wexler has another association going back to the Mega Group.
Max Fisher, yeah.
To Max Fisher and the Mega Group.
Florida?
Which is interesting. Yeah, it was a Florida congressional district. Boynton Beach was where Wexler was from. And I just found out that Wexler's father had this association with the Mega Group and Max Fisher. So because 3 of these 4 Pakistanis in the ring were brothers, the ring was referred to in the press as the Awan spy ring. The BlackBerries configured by this Awan spy ring for Hunter Biden, for James Biden, and for potentially Joe Biden may have been the BlackBerries that changed the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. If this swings, if this Bobulinski disclosure with these BlackBerries swings the election, it will be because of the BlackBerries potentially configured by Imran Awan for Joe Biden.
To review, it is confirmed that it was congressional staff doing encryption for senatorial representatives, and the Senate did not have its own encryption team, and the Senate had a relationship with the congressional encryption team. That's correct? Am I?
The congressional staffer on the Biden staffing team said that that's where they got the encrypted devices, from those folks that were in the House of Representatives. It could have been because they were all working on the Iran nuclear deal together. There was people in the House Intelligence Committee working on the Iran nuclear deal. About the time Hunter Biden gets his BlackBerry is late 2014. That's when the U.S. Congress was considering the first treaty. So it could have been that the same team that did the treaty for the House got involved with the Senate. The Senate actually has the responsibility for negotiating the treaty.
Under normal circumstances, a Senate device would be encrypted by, or would be set up by, a Senate employee, not a congressional employee.
It would actually be set up by the State Department, because the State Department manages all treaties. So what could have been happening here is the State Department had BlackBerries that had already been given to the House members, and the State Department was just moving those BlackBerries over to the Senate. But Deep BlackBerry, the reason why he was telling me about Imran Awan and how Imran came to the Congress was because this is where we got the BlackBerries, and he leaves a BlackBerry with me. I just want to repeat that. So, okay, back to the book. Perhaps a Biden staffer fact witness from May of 2017 who could testify to the physical existence of the encrypted BlackBerries triggered Tony Bobulinski to make this disclosure of the encrypted BlackBerries late in the 2020 campaign, because there's a fact witness out there. So they have to somehow account for what the BlackBerries did in 2017 and before. Perhaps another fact witness to verify their authenticity of the encrypted BlackBerries triggered Bobulinski's exposure late into the 2020 campaign, which would be Andre Taggart, the person who gave me the House BlackBerries. More information is literally coming out every day. What isn't in doubt is the long-term Biden staffer knew the Awans configured the encrypted BlackBerries for the Bidens. He knew how the Awans got to Congress in the first place, and he knew that the encrypted BlackBerries had been used in covert operations before. So this is what he's saying: is we weren't involved. The Senate guys were not involved in any of the covert actions before 2014. Okay, we just got the BlackBerries from those covert actions from the State Department.
Now that the years have gone by, we are realizing the timeline of Hunter and all the salacious things and Bobby Linsky and all these people in China interacting with those people at that time was the timeline of your meeting,
Right.
which now
That
sheds so much more light on why that meeting may have been precipitated.
correct. Because if you go along with the pattern of you go do all your robberies, right, then you launder the money or you fence the money at the end of your robbery. You buy diamonds or whatever however you fence it. In this case, they usually launder it through energy companies or an energy deal, which would be maybe the Iran nuclear deal, maybe for Ukraine, whatever. We don't know. It could have been Ukraine because Hunter Biden became the ensign, the Senate appointed and 41-year-old ensign in 2014 when the Ukraine overthrow happens, the color revolution in Ukraine. So this could have been Hunter's first rodeo to overthrow Ukraine in 2014 when he became an ensign.
I want to say something. I don't think it's too much of a surprise. I have a feeling Deep Blackberry wasn't reaching out to you in order to be a whistleblower to inform you. I think he was more trying to extract from you what you might know already about them.
Right.
You're okay with that? At first you thought he was coming to you to tell you, as a journalist, but instead it's like, man, he must have been trying to fake whistleblow and extract from you.
Quid pro quo, right?
And he probably also wanted to know if I went into the BlackBerry and how much I went into the BlackBerry.
Just quickly, George, who's Deep Blackberry again? Is your inside source, correct?
He's the 40-year Biden staffer he gave me the BlackBerry. He left me the BlackBerry that night, and we returned it the next day.
May 2017, late May 2017.
About a week after Bobby Linsky meets with Joe Biden, supposedly.
Wow.
About a week later.
So my question actually ties right into this. With the meeting with Deep Blackberry, I was curious if at that point you had uncovered any of the relationships with the Imran Awan and with the BCCI Bank, and with that scandal. Going into that meeting, were you aware of that relationship? Did you discuss it with Deep Blackberry?
I didn't discuss BCCI. Amjad Awan, though, was in my early reports. As soon as the Awan scandal broke, I was comparing it to BCCI and HSBC. I think I was doing that even before the Awan scandal broke.
Mm-hmm.
But Amjad Awan was the banker or the money man, the bag man for BCCI. Yeah, for BCCI. So here's another Awan in Congress.
Now, have you established if that Awan and Imran and ID or these different characters, are they all related? And if so, how would that be proven in a courtroom setting?
They're related by their tribe. The tribe has this Awan militaristic tribe has been sort of the enforcers of the British East India Company route through that area of China and Pakistan for about 300 years. But Amjad Awan from the Iran-Contra scandal is not related, or at least I couldn't find a blood relation to Imran Awan, other than the fact that the Awan name is sort of like an homage to that old, enforcement network. And the Awan's a very militaristic tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
And the current president or prime minister of Pakistan, his first name is Imran, so I didn't know if that was a connection also. But
just a common name.
Just a common name.
Yeah, Imran Khan, the cricketer who became the president. The Biden staffer specifically mentioned Libya and Syria Blackberries. So the Biden staffer directly mentioned Libya and Syria Blackberries. Okay.
Libya would have been like 2011, right?
Yeah, and Syria 2012 and 13. So Libya was 2011, 12, 2013. But again, he's saying we weren't involved in that, but it's fuzzy right around the time of 2014. Was Hunter in on the color revolution in Ukraine? He didn't say anything about that. He did say that they were in on the energy deal with China and Russia, and which turns out to be Belt and Road, the CEFC. Okay, so Biden staffer specifically mentioned the Libya and Syria Blackberries were being given to then Vice President Joe Biden. Many pundits on Capitol Hill speculated the Awan aspiring was planted in the U.S. Congress by the CIA. Some say it was planted there because they wanted to continue diverting money from U.S. Congress for CIA investments like Intel Q. We don't know the answer to that. And DARPA investments. The Awans, though, however, did have a car dealership that appeared to be a front for the funds for their operations with the CIA initials, Cars International A, right?
Run by Ray Obas
Run by Imran Awan and his brother Abid Awan.
and Alpha Jallo.
Alpha Jallo was a person who was doing business, buying and selling cars there.
Buying, right. He was, so
But
he would have been like
he was not a principal of the company, though. The car loans, what was happening was loans were being made from the U.S. Congress, U.S. Congressional Credit Union, and people who were coming down, who knows if their trunks were filled with weapons or not, but that appears to be. Alpha Jallo appeared to be a courier, and he would drive the cars down. They'd be the trunks and other compartments would either be full of weapons, and then he would get a car loan. He would get paid for selling his car there,
right?
And then someone else would buy the car and put it on a boat to Africa, to West Africa.
They'd be crazy to put Alpha Jallo on ownership or payroll. He's an independent.
All the records were destroyed.
Yeah,
it was all cash. It was all cash.
But you caught him as part of the team. Clearly, he's part of the spy ring.
He later was found to be associated with the DNC.
Wow.
So, okay. So, and that was before Operation Cassandra was even known. We speculated that there was an operation later on of people involved in the operation. The car theft ring in New Jersey and New York came forward and called it Operation Cassandra. Okay. Now, second operation here is George Webb speculated the Awans were enabled by a CIA program called Operation Blackjack, a multi-billion-dollar covert action intended to hunt down Osama bin Laden. Operation Blackjack used new technology, small satellites, such as small cube-sized nanosatellites that were being deployed to enable special forces, operations forces, to pinpoint terrorists with astonishing accuracy and clarity with the battlefield photography. Okay, the Awans had two other front companies, one entitled Nanoset, which sounds like a nano satellite company, and the other was entitled New Dawn Corporation, which is apparently the same name as the U.S. NATO military operation for the Afghanistan war. So that looked like they had one for selling weapons, transacting weapons. Deep Uranium tells me later that that's, Pakistani Ordnance Factory, which Imran Awan's father was one of the principals of. But the Nanoset was different. It was the surveillance technology, two different companies.
Deep Uranium, not Deep Blackberry. Told you that, you said, right?
No. Deep Uranium told me.
Can we do a quick review of Deep Uranium?
Yeah. Who is Deep Uranium?
Just the same we did with Deep Blackberry.
We're going to get there, but Deep Uranium is a guy who said he worked for CIA type cutout, contractor type companies, flying stuff all over the corridor of the China Belt and Road between Iran and China. There's 4 or 5 countries there that I call the stands because most Americans don't know them. Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and there's one other one.
Uzbekistan.
There's Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. You've been to Uzbekistan. The richest country in the world for uranium is Kazakhstan. That's where Warren Buffett buys the bank, the World Uranium Bank. And basically Deep Uranium saying there's a series of these CIA bases and they are self-sufficient. There's no power lines running to them, but they're running these mining operations. So he speculated that the uranium was going for running the mining operations with these small modular nuclear reactors. I did not know that at the time that Deep Blackberry, the Biden guy, Bill Taylor, was his father. That was his specialty. I did not know that at all. I had no idea. That came out with later research. So anyway, the reason why I called him Deep Uranium was the uranium that was supposed to be coming from Russia at the end of the Cold War to our power plants here was stopping for this Belt and Road project. Again, I didn't know it was a Belt and Road project, but I did know it was a string of reactors. Now, it turns out later that we found out it's 30 reactors.
And you met him in the D.C. area.
I only talked to him on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Over, long, and Crowdsource the Truth had him on as well, on the phone many times. But then I finally met him the day before I get arrested looking for the uranium in Ohio. So,
wow. Well,
okay. So not only did the Awans, so the Awans had two other front companies, Nanoset and New Dawn Corporation, which was named after the Afghan war operation. And not only did the Awans work on Capitol Hill, but they supported congressional members who were on the most sensitive committees: the House Intelligence Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and the House DHS Committee, the House Homeland Security Committee. The Awans configured key encrypted BlackBerries that contained top secret information from the House Foreign Affairs, House Intelligence, and House Homeland Security. George Webb speculated that the same Nanoset technology that was used to chase bin Laden could have a dual use to track American citizens. Webb further speculated that the Awans could provide the conduit for returning this surveillance technology money back through the U.S. through shell companies that the Awans incorporated with, and that the Awans staffed. So if we send the technology and the technology money over there, Pakistani Ordnance Factory comes up, their DARPA is named DESTO. They come up with them, they manufacture them. Now they can sell them back to the United States, to special forces in the United States, and everybody makes money on the U.S. Technology. The Pakistanis don't pay any money for the intellectual property. They make this little satellites there, and then they sell them back to the United States. Don't have any proof of that, but the Awans did have a DoD trading number. They did have a DoD trading number at Fort Belvoir at the Defense Logistics Agency. Okay, so were the Iranians rinsing U.S. military surveillance technology for U.S. surveillance use on U.S. citizens? Was the U.S. military technology being used to establish a Department of Homeland Security paramilitary surveillance force? Were the investments in surveillance technology paid for by the U.S. Congress being used as a means of skirting the protections that U.S. citizens enjoy from domestic spying by the U.S. Constitution? Were law-abiding citizens paying for additional surveillance on themselves indirectly by paying for the war on terror? We will explore these questions completely in this book. I originally published this book in June 2020, and the book called Awan Minutes to Midnight. Now I have updated this book to include the new ringing confirmations of encrypted BlackBerries being used in the Russia-Chinese energy deals by the Bidens. You will see how an elite Pakistani intelligence unit was planted in our U.S. Congress in 2004 by none other than our own Central Intelligence Agency. I now believe it was for the start of this Belt and Road in 2006. It's only becomes public in 2013, but the infrastructure was being laid with these small nuclear reactors as far back as 2004. And you will read how this same Pakistani intelligence unit, Pakistani ISI 111 for short, is also developing chemical and biological weapons as a proxy for the U.S. military, including coronavirus and anthrax. And there's 3 other programs that they're developing in concert, in association with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So not just nuclear stuff that we're doing with DESTO, their DARPA, but also chems and bios. You see how this same, go ahead.
The individuals coming in that you mentioned starting 2004, that would have been Inter-American or Inter-America. All of them or just Imran?
I think all of them.
You think all of them?
Yeah,
wow.
Because all of them cleared. None of them had a background check by the FBI, and they all were cleared to work on these most sensitive top secret committees. The only way that could have happened is if they had a sponsor from the CIA to put them there and say, or the FBI saying that they were part of an operation to catch people who were.
And what is Inter-America? Like a visa, like a high level kind of like
it's supposed to
tech
be
jobs kind of
it's
thing?
Supposed to be an NGO that the Rockefeller started for bringing people in for Central America. And it used to be that they would get secretaries and pages on Capitol Hill when it was paper, but then they moved to electronics. So the program for Inter-America moved to electronics, teaching people how to be Microsoft Office experts, the secretaries, the personal assistants.
Well, it moved from Central America over to Pakistan too, apparently, huh?
That's when that is what happened with the Awans. Yeah.
Wow.
So through Pakistan, is China ultimately behind this, would you say?
I think China is the ultimate recipient. I think China and Korea, Libya, all these countries that we consider rogue countries are the recipients, but China is probably the biggest recipient. And this Russian uranium that Deep Uranium said was not getting here was being brokered and chopped up and sold all over the place. But China was probably the biggest recipient. I didn't know it then, but it was probably for these 30 reactors along the Belt and Road between Iran and China.
So would you say it's accurate to state that the CAA has sold us out to China?
Well, it depends on who. If from the CIA's point of view, it's a great deal. Their investment club, their Intel Q investment club's very happy. But I think they sold out the American people.
Incutel.
Yeah.
Incutel. I'm sorry.
Do you think that that this Inter-American program is related to the Inter-American Developmental Bank that was created in 1959?
Rockefeller created that same bank, and what the idea was, hey, we'll help these poor farmers grow different crops that are needed in the world economy, rather than growing subsistence crops for them locally. Well, it turned out that cocaine was one of the things.
One of the favorite crops.
Yeah, and the same kind of thing was USAID developing opium fields in Pakistan and Afghanistan as a crop, and their self-sufficient crop, which was rice, was provided to them by USAID, and we've seen that all over the world. You've talked about that in Ghana. Your wife talked about that in Ghana.
Big thing.
This is all over the world. This is how they do it. It's like, how are we going to eat if we grow the poppies or the cocaine? You're going to eat with USAID rice.
One of the glaring, facts here in the story was the report from DNC Inspector General, the woman Grafenstein, right? And the exact words in her report are 1,100 and
5,111.
5,111 illegal logins.
Right.
So she obviously went in, she tracked the software or whatever.
At the time of the DNC hack.
And this is a woman paid by Nancy Pelosi. This isn't like a right winger here. I mean, this is someone on their staff, right? So she identified these, and we're sure these 5,111 logins are from Imran and the guys.
Most of them were from Imran. I mean, about 1,000 of them were his wife.
They were tracked to Imran, these logins, for sure.
And who was the chairwoman of the DNC at that time? Was that Donna Brazil then, or was there somebody different?
Well, at the time of the DNC hack, it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Okay, right.
And we know that because she's in Beverly Hills doing fundraising at the time of the DNC hack, and everyone's saying, where is Imran? And Nancy Pelosi has another big meeting about 2 weeks before that saying, Imran, get in here. So we know she knows Imran. Imran, get in here, no staff, meaning this is high level.
And before Imran got arrested, he was working for more than just Wasserman Schultz, right?
45 different members of Congress.
But she was the only one that kept him on.
She was the only one who kept him on.
Okay.
I do want to say, I want to keep on this illegal logins. Imran is very impressive. This guy can wear multiple hats. He's changing air filters.
Well, he's obviously smart.
He's selling cars. He's doing it all, right? But these illegal logins are the thing that send the terabytes to Pakistan, right? Terabytes to Pakistan is the 5,100 illegal logins, essentially.
It comes out to about an hourly backup. So it looks like if you do the space of time that she said the logins happened, and it could have been that remember, she's just saying the 6 weeks is 5,111 logins, okay? But it could have been a program that was ongoing for 12 years. And all that information for supporting a weapons program like biological weapons program was going, chemical weapons was going, and also nuclear technology. And if you look at the name of the Dropbox, it's called the 123 Dropbox. If you look at the name of the State Department agreements for bio, nuclear, and chemical, it's called the 123 agreement. So it very much supports the idea that all this stuff was going in. Anything that had to do with bio, nukes, or chems was going into this Dropbox. And that was the terabytes heading to Pakistan.
And now the final question here that I was sort of setting up is everything happening today with these energy deals and the Bobulinski and all of this, is that made possible because the terabytes went to Pakistan? Essentially, like, because somebody over there got the terabytes, they then knew how to plug in the reactors or plug in the rods or do whatever was necessary to be done to make the coffee maker make the coffee, essentially, and were the terabytes for the purpose of knowing how to run the coffee maker in a sense, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like running a building versus building a building. The amount of skill needed to build a big reactor is huge. That would have come from Battelle in Columbus, Ohio. And we have a lot of our data of people like Lisa Page and Peter Strzok putting people into Columbus, Ohio, near Battelle.
And what is Battelle again, George?
Battelle is a company that specializes in these dark weapons, these weapons that are supposedly banned by the U.S. Military since 1973.
Biochemical weapons.
Biochemical, nuclear. They build nuclear plants as well, and they also do chemical weapons. So
one thing I just want to follow up to, when just thinking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz when she was in that the meeting with the Capitol Hill police chief over the property, whose property it was, how it should be handled and reviewed. I believe that was a laptop that was found in a vacant phone booth at the Capitol. Do you believe that was Imran Awan's laptop, or what do you think it was tied to this the DNC and DCCC hacking or exfiltration of information?
Yeah, if you look at it, it's the description of that bag, which has the Blackberries in it, and it has the laptops in it, and also has the Imran's information and so forth, fits the description of what Taggart had at the house in April. They just find it 6 weeks later in a phone booth in the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
If it went from if Taggart's correct and it went to the sheriff of Fairfax County, was the last person who had it in custody, and they brought it back to Capitol Hill and they left it in a phone booth, then it would then become the custody of Capitol Hill Police, which is good for Debbie Wasserman Schultz because she's the one who writes the check from the finance committee for their budget.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw her trying to physically or verbally intimidate the chief of the Capitol Police, which is Verta Rosa,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's convenient that the bag of Blackberries that I find out in the jurisdiction in Virginia conveniently get dropped into the jurisdiction of the Capitol Hill Police.
So there's your leverage and incentive
to cover it up, basically, to cover it up. And in Luke Rosiak's book, he talks about those Blackberries and laptop being in the evidence cage at the Capitol Hill Police.
Right.
I've interviewed many people on the Capitol Hill Police,
mm-hmm.
and no one's been able to get to those devices. So I have a feeling they're really in the FBI vault, not the Capitol Police vault. But we'll let that
Chris Ray figure that out for us, right?
Chris Ray, when he wasn't looking the other way on Enron, and he wasn't looking the other way on all the
dog
takedowns.
at the FBI currently, though. So
yeah. So okay, this last sentence, you will see how this same PAC ISI 111 has a long history with the importation of fentanyl and heroin into the United States, operating behind the cover of such organizations as Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and Muslim Brotherhood. So with that, that's the introduction. Enjoy the hunt for Hunter's Blackberries. That's going to be the title, The Hunt for Hunter's Blackberries.
Excellent. Thank you so much
Thanks
to the author, George Webb, for sitting with us and going through that synopsis there, George. And you are continually revising it. Is that correct?
Yep, that's the introduction. That's going to be the introduction. And tomorrow we'll do chapter 1.
Awesome.
All right.
We'll
Thanks.
see you then, folks.